Most people watch horror to feel scared, but you're not most people. You're here because part of you is drawn to the darkness, the questions that keep you up at night. Here, we don't just tell stories, we unlock the part of your mind that enjoys being haunted. Subscribe now, because once you've seen what we show you, there's no going back. And trust me, you won't want to.
Every 13 years. No trucks, no crew. Just a flyer blowing through the wind. No one remembers how it arrives. But they remember what it leaves behind. Eli Voss was broke, out of chances, a washed-up magician sleeping in abandoned arcades, until he saw the flyer. Cirque Umbra, performers wanted, no past required. He followed the signs to a clearing in a forgotten town called Gilder Hollow, and there it was, glowing under a pale red moon. Tents stitched from smoke and velvet, music from nowhere. A ringmaster waited, porcelain mask, no eyes, no mouth. But a voice filled Eli's mind. "Welcome, Eli. You've been chosen for our final act." And Niels, the giant, who wept uncontrollably when anyone told a lie. They lived in tents that shifted in size, moved when no one looked. They told Eli the truth. Cirque Umbra doesn't perform for the living. We perform for memory, for the forgotten, for those who were never mourned. Eli tried to laugh, but the laugh didn't feel like his. Opening night, the tent filled with people, too many, too still. They didn't blink, didn't breathe. Eli stepped into the ring. He juggled knives, threw cards that lit themselves on fire. The crowd didn't move until he stumbled. Then they clapped, in perfect unison, mechanical, hollow, endless. Behind the applause, a whisper, "You remember now, don't you?" That night the tent grew longer, the mirrors multiplied, and Eli found his name already etched into the marquee. The Vanishing Act, featuring Eli Voss. They warned him, never look behind the red curtain. But the curtain was already open. Behind it, the grand mirror. It didn't reflect Eli. It showed a little boy crying alone backstage, a mother walking away from the ring, a man older, alone, forgotten. He looked again. The boy became Eli. The mother was gone. And the crowd, they were all versions of himself clapping endlessly. He screamed, but only the mirror responded, "You came to forget. You stayed because you did." Eli tried to leave. He ran through tents, into woods, past endless carnival lights, but everything circled back. He wasn't the performer anymore. He was the performance. Cirque Umbra doesn't let go. Now, every 13 years, the flyer returns, and someone new arrives, lost, forgotten. They join the show, and Eli, he's still in the mirror, clapping, waiting for the next act. Because the circus doesn't need your applause, it needs your memory.
They say what waits inside the tent is never what you expect. But I wasn't afraid. Not at first. There was something familiar in the dark and something soft and strange like memory. And though the silence pressed against me like velvet, I stepped deeper into it, because I had already crossed the threshold. And once you're inside Cirque Umbra, there's no such thing as going back. They say the tent shifts once you're inside, that it doesn't stay the same for any two people, that it molds itself around your memories, your regrets, your ghosts. I didn't believe that at first, but as I took my next step into the ring, I realized the air had changed. It wasn't just heavy, it was listening. The ground beneath me creaked softly, not like wood, but like something exhaling. And then the spotlight flickered out. I froze. The only sound was my breath, uneven, shallow. And then, behind me, the faint tick, tick, tick. Not a clock this time. Footsteps, deliberate, mechanical, each one perfectly spaced like the swing of a pendulum. I turned slowly. In the shadows, between the rows of seated figures, one shape had risen. Not walked, risen, like a puppet yanked upward on strings. Its face was blank at first, smooth, featureless, pale like porcelain left in moonlight, and then features bled into being, slowly, unnaturally. A mouth formed first, a perfect smile, then two eyes, wide, watching me but not blinking. It took a step forward and I took one back. They say the tent shifts once you're inside, that it doesn't stay the same for any two people, that it molds itself around your memories, your regrets, your ghosts. I didn't believe that at first, but as I took my next step into the ring, I realized the air had changed. It wasn't just heavy, it was listening. The ground beneath me creaked softly, not like wood, but like something exhaling. And then the spotlight flickered out. I froze. The only sound was my breath, uneven, shallow. And then, behind me, the faint tick, tick, tick. Not a clock this time. Footsteps, deliberate, mechanical, each one perfectly spaced like the swing of a pendulum. I turned slowly. In the shadows, between the rows of seated figures, one shape had risen. Not walked, risen, like a puppet yanked upward on strings. Its face was blank at first, smooth, featureless, pale like porcelain left in moonlight, and then features bled into being, slowly, unnaturally. A mouth formed first, a perfect smile, then two eyes, wide, watching me but not blinking. It took a step forward and I took one back, not dim, dark, total and instant, like someone had blinked the world out of existence. I couldn't see my hands, couldn't hear my own footsteps, just the ticking, always the ticking, and then whispering. Dozens of voices layered on top of one another like wind brushing leaves, but each one spoke my name. Elsie, Elsie Merrin. Elsie. You turned the key. I covered my ears, but the voices were inside me now, behind my ribs, in the bones of my hands, and just when I thought I would scream, light returned. But it wasn't the ring. It was a hallway, thin, crooked, lined with red velvet drapes. I wasn't in the tent anymore, or maybe I still was and the tent had changed again. The hallway smelled of wax and rust. At the end was a door. It was small, wooden, and shaped like a coffin stood on end. On the handle, etched in brass, was a name. J. Merrin, my father. I didn't want to open it. Every inch of me screamed to turn back. But I'd already come too far. The tent knew I was here. The doorknob was warm, not from heat, from memory. And when I opened it, I didn't step into a room. I stepped into our old clock shop, exactly as it had been the morning he died. Dust danced in golden light through the window. Shelves lined with clocks, all ticking softly in perfect unison. His coat on the hook, his tea mug half full, still steaming. But I knew it was wrong. There was no ticking in that room the morning he died, only silence. I turned to leave, and the door was gone. Instead, in its place, stood a figure behind the counter. He wore my father's clothes, his posture, even his glasses. But he wasn't my father. His head moved too slowly, his eyes didn't blink. And when he spoke, the sound didn't come from his mouth. You couldn't leave it alone, could you? I said nothing. You had to turn the key. You had to listen for the tickets again. He lifted something from behind the counter, a box, old, wooden, familiar, the music box, the one he'd built for me when I was a child. It had stopped playing when he got sick. I stepped forward. He held it out. "Wind it, Elsie." I shook my head. He only smiled. "Wind it, or we'll both be stuck here." I took the box with shaking hands. It felt heavier than it should have, like it was full of something more than music. I turned the key. Once, twice. The tune began to play, slow, broken, the notes dragging like something trying to wake from a long sleep. The room began to melt. Shelves sagged. The floor turned soft. Clocks stopped mid-tick. My father's figure collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. And I was alone again, back in the tent, but not where I'd left. I stood on the high wire platform, far above the ring. The tent stretched wider than before. No floor below, just black open space that pulsed like water. On the wire ahead of me, a child. She turned slowly. Her eyes were mine. Her face was mine. Younger, maybe 10. She raised a hand. "You fell once already," she said. "Don't do it again." The tent tilted. I lost my footing, fell, and woke up in my own bed, gasping, sweating, clothes soaked, hands trembling. It was morning, sunlight, birds. The circus was gone, but on my nightstand sat the music box, and it was still playing. I thought I'd escaped. The morning after the fall, the sun rose like it always did. The curtains in my bedroom glowed with soft light. Birdsong hummed through the open window, and the music box on my nightstand had stopped. No more ticking, no more whispers, no more tent. I told myself it had all been a dream, a hallucination, grief playing tricks on a mind that hadn't fully let go. But then the clock in the hallway struck 7, even though it had been broken for years, and that's when I knew. The circus doesn't vanish when you leave the tent, it follows. That morning, I walked to town like I used to when I was a girl. Boots crunching frost, scarf pulled tight. Everything looked the same, familiar, safe. But the people I passed didn't look back, not once. It wasn't that they ignored me, it was that they didn't see me at all. Not the postman, not the butcher, not old Mrs. Holloway on her usual bench. It was like I'd been painted over, the shape of me still there, but colourless. When I got to the shop, my father's shop, the windows were dusty, the sign still read, "Merrin Timepieces." But the lights inside were flickering, one light bulb swinging gently back and forth, though there was no wind. I pressed my hand to the glass. It was warm, too warm for the winter chill outside. And then I saw it, inside, behind the counter, the music box, not on the shelf, on the counter, open, waiting. I didn't have a key. I hadn't brought one. The door should have been locked, but when I touched the handle, it turned. The bell above the door jingled, and I stepped inside. The air smelled like ash and varnish, like something old pretending to be alive. The clocks were all ticking again, every single one. hundreds of them. Wall clocks, carriage clocks, mantel clocks, all swinging their pendulums in perfect unison. The sound should have been overwhelming, but it wasn't. It was soothing, like a heartbeat, like breath, and behind the counter, standing where I had seen him in the tent, was my father. But this time it was different. His hands trembled, his eyes blinked, and when he saw me, he smiled. Not the puppet smile from before, a real one. "Elsie," he said. My throat closed. I couldn't speak. I walked forward slowly, every step echoing in a way that didn't match the floor. "You're still here," he said gently. He looked down at the music box. "You wound it. That brought it back." I tried to form words. I saw you, in the tent, but you weren't. I wasn't me," he finished. "No. That's because part of me stayed behind when I died." He looked up at me, eyes suddenly hollow. "The part that made a deal." The room darkened slightly, or maybe the walls just seemed to pull away. He continued, voice low. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The circus came to Belmere when I was a boy, before it disappeared, and I went inside." A chill threaded down my spine. He nodded, reading the fear in my face. "I escaped, but not all of me. I left with time, but the price was set, and now it's yours." "No," I whispered. "I didn't ask." "You didn't need to. You turned the key." He placed a hand on the music box. It stopped. "But there may be a way to sever it." My heart jumped. "How?" He opened a drawer beneath the counter and pulled out a thin book, black cover, no title. When he opened it, the pages turned on their own. Inside were names. So many names. Each one scratched out, except the last, Elsie Merrin. He placed the book in front of me. "This is the ledger. The circus keeps it. Those who make deals, those who break them, and those who inherit them. What happens if I sign it? You don't sign it." He looked at me darkly. "You burn it." I reached for the book, but the moment my fingers touched the cover, the lights went out, and the sound returned. Not ticking this time, clapping, slow, rhythmic clapping from the back of the shop. Then came the laugh, a low chuckle, distant at first, but rising. A spotlight flicked on overhead, cutting through the dark, and there, sitting atop the grandfather clock in the far corner, legs dangling like a marionette, was the ringmaster. No strings, just him, smiling, his face painted perfectly, and behind him, the mirror, the one from the 10th, cracked, breathing. I could feel the pull, like gravity, like grief, like fate. Behind me, the ringmaster whispered, "Time is a stage, and yours is not yet done." I turned, he bowed, and I stepped through the mirror.